Hi everyone, my name is Beth Hundy and I'm teaching Environmental Change 3350. I am an environmental change scientist who specializes in paleolimnology, which means that I use fossils and signals in lake sediments to understand past environmental changes. I'm looking forward to learning more about your interests as well, and I'm just making this short video so that you can watch and rewatch to get an idea about how the course is going to run. There are three things I'm going to cover in this video: course logistics, the course schedule, and assessments for this course. All right, let's have a quick look at the graphic syllabus. There is a full version of the syllabus that you can check out with all the policies and so on, but I like to just do an overview one just to give an idea of the general vibe of the course. So first of all, the course evaluation. We're going to go into this a little bit further shortly. But I just wanted to mention there are 6 assignments. The lab and the archives presentation, you both have in-class time for those, 4 hours per each. There's a communication project. There's 3 choices for that one. There's a passion project. There's endless choice for that one. And for that, you also have to submit either a project plan and an annotated bibliography, as well as do a very short showcase presentation. There's a take-home exam at the end of the course and participation throughout. And participation is not just attendance. This actually requires you to set goals and monitor your progress towards those goals. Having a look now at the schedule. So the big picture topics are given in more detail in the full syllabus, but we're going to look at why study environmental change in the first place, essential climate background, so basically what do you need to know to understand the rest of this course. What are the methods of environmental change? How do we know what the climate or the environment were like before? And what does that tell us? We'll look at recent warming and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. We'll look at past environments and civilizations. How did they experience their climate and their environment, and what can we learn from that? And then in-class showcases, so showing off that passion project before you do the final exam. Now below, you'll see, below the schedule, you'll see these bars, and these are supposed to give you an indication of basically how long are you supposed to be working on these different components. So when do they begin and when are they handed in? You can find the actual deadlines on the OWL site in the syllabus, but I wanted to give you an idea about how long you should be working on things. There's 2 kind of weird ones. One is participation. You're working on that throughout, but there are some deadlines where you have to give reflections and updates on how you're doing with regards to participation. And then the communication project. That looks like it goes on forever. It really doesn't. It's just that there are rolling deadlines. So depending on when you're going to hand yours in might look different from someone else. A little bit about this course. So even though we're starting online, and we're having a little bit of a question mark about when we'll be back in person, we're still going to work in pods. So if you look at this picture at the bottom, we're scheduled to be in this class called WALS. The class has been in there since 2014. We have a great time working together at these tables in groups of 4 to 6. We're going to do that online as well, just so we get the opportunity to work with one another and learn from one another. You are going to be setting goals. Maybe you're thinking, I don't have any goals for this course. I just got here. That's fine. I'm going to lead you through the process of setting goals, and then you'll get a chance to kind of build on those as you see how the course runs. I'm going to ask you to support your classmates. So very often this means being willing to share your expertise that you might have learned through experience or through other courses with each other, and recognizing when your classmates need help, and doing what you can, and asking for help if you have questions as well. I'm going to be asking you to reflect on what you've learned. This sounds easy. Look at the little mirror, but it's not so easy. But that's why you have multiple chances to do it and dig a little deeper and get feedback. And finally, be curious. Think about what's interesting to you in the course. Ask questions about that. Ask more questions about your questions. This will help you find things that really intrigue you about the topic and make the experience better for you. Our schedule is not so simple. It's Mondays and Wednesdays, 4:30 to 6:30. Well, that sounds simple, but it varies a little bit week by week. So you'll have a look at the schedule. You'll be looking at the OWL site week to week. I'm going to keep you on track. I managed to do it last year. I'm going to do it again this year. People had no problem keeping up. But there are times where you will be, um, on Zoom or in person, depending on the current state of the university. And there'll be other times where instead of coming in person, you can work independently on some asynchronous activities, but you still have to get those done. So I adjust the schedule based on what other things we're doing. Um, and I'll keep it as straightforward as I can, and I'll bring you along for the ride with me. So not to worry, but just to know that you don't have to be in every single class 4:30 to 6:30. Finally, you're going to want to look at these learning outcomes. They give you a general idea about what my goals are for you to achieve in this course. But you can also think about, are there specific things you're really interested in? It might be the chance for you to choose something along those lines for one of the projects to dig deeper or to go further into that topic yourself. It's worth noting that you can always check if there's class in a given week. There's a couple of ways to do so. The first way is to go to the calendar. It's on the main page here, or you can click on the calendar tab. And well, there's nothing this week because I'm early days yet, but if I go to the first week of the class, you'll see that there's a class on Monday in Zoom. There isn't one on Wednesday. And so you can look by month and see all the sessions that happen in class and make sure that you're on the ball there. Note that you can actually publish this calendar to your subscribe to this calendar and add it to your Outlook calendar if you like. So that might be something that's useful for you if you don't want to go to OWL every time to check. The other thing is if I go to course content, for example, and week 1, then I can see there's a Zoom class on Monday from 4:30 to 6:30, and on Wednesday there's no synchronous class. And so that will help you keep on top of things too, but note that there's asynchronous lessons that you need to keep up with as well. I mentioned that the schedule varies from week to week, and honestly, I don't think there are any 2 weeks that are the same. And I know that might cause you a little bit of concern to begin with, but I will make this as organized as possible to help move you through. What I don't want to lose are the really engaging and interesting activities that happen week to week. And so for that reason, I am keeping some of the variability. So you will be able to find out more information about what's happening in each class and the scheduling and so on. But you're also welcome just to come along for the ride and try to embrace finding out what's going to happen each week. So actually, the first few weeks are a bit heavier in terms of content, and that's because there's a lot that you need to make sure that you understand in order for the rest of the course to go smoothly. So for example, in week 1, you just have the one Zoom class, you have a bunch of asynchronous lessons, and then you prepare for the next week. Week 3, as an example, you have one Zoom class, you have some asynchronous lessons, and then you have a lab session with the TA. You'll have some more asynchronous lessons, perhaps, that you didn't complete before the Wednesday. That's totally fine. You'll have to work on the lab in your own time, and then you'll prepare for the next week. The prep for the next week is often like a 10-minute activity. It's not a huge thing, but it kind of helps you feel like, okay, I'm at the end of this week. Week 8 is an example where you have a Zoom class on the Monday and the Wednesday, literally nothing else. Those are the activities for the week, and then you'll prep for the next week. Week 12 is an example where you'll have asynchronous showcases to do, and then you'll prepare for the next week. So as I mentioned, the course does differ a little bit week to week, but there are a few constants. So one thing is that if we're together in Zoom or together in person, either way, then we're going to be engaging in active learning, which means that you are going to be actively engaging with each other, engaging with the material, and grappling with what we're learning. And that's been shown again and again to lead to deeper learning. So that's why we do it that way. And I also just want to make sure that, if we're together, making the best use of your time, we're doing things that really make sense to do when you have access to instructors and each other and can really think things through. Another constant is that I'm going to be giving intro videos every week to kind of let you know what's happening, and that I'm going to have really clear expectations on each OWL page for the week, which will end with some prep work for the following week. As I mentioned, somewhere, maybe in this video, maybe in the syllabus, it's usually around 10 minutes of work, but it lets you have that feeling of, okay, like I've reached the end, like I'm prepared for the next week. It kind of gives you closure. I also just wanted to mention that you're probably wondering what's going to happen in this course. You're probably wondering what's going to happen in all of your courses. So am I. So the one thing I can tell you that maybe will allay some of your concerns is that regardless of what happens, we are going to have some asynchronous classes, which means that even if we go back in person and I get to see you in the Walls classroom, that some of your sessions will still be taking as asynchronous online material. And that it's that synchronous piece that's going to switch from online to in person in the Walls classroom. But regardless of what happens, I'm committed to helping you to make this an engaging experience. I hope you feel the same way. I think together we can have an awesome class. We had a great time last year, even though it was all online. We've had a great time learning in previous years when it was in person. So if we get some mix of the two, I'm sure we will still make it work. And as I said before, I'm just really looking forward to getting to know all of you and learning about environmental change with you. Participation is worth 15%, and there are lots of ways to get involved in this class, as you'll soon see. So some of it is large and small group discussion, but a lot of it is in different formats as well, like writing and reflection and so on. There will be some goal setting that's going to happen at the beginning of the course, and then 2 self-assessments, as well as some other guided reflections that will help you figure out where you're at with participation. So how does this work? So each student is going to set goals for themselves for the course. So it might be related to growth, it might be related to collaboration, it might be related to a specific grade point that you want to achieve. You will be asked to self-assess how you are doing on these different components and on participation in general. Now at 2 points in the course, you'll be asked to share your self-assessments with the instructor, that's me, and I have my own set of notes, attendance, reflection records, and so on, and I can make sure that we're on the same page regarding participation and make adjustments as necessary. So one of the first assignments that you'll work on is the lab assignment worth 10%. So some class time is allocated to working on this assignment. There are 2 lab periods devoted to it, and it will require graphing and interpretation of time series data. Now I will point out that one of the biggest pitfalls we see with the lab assignment is that students dismiss Excel as something that they already know enough about. There are always more things that you can learn about Excel. So don't take lightly the fact that you can get TA help in that lab assignment. So worth 10% is a presentation, or you can even think about teaching about techniques of environmental change. So in groups, you're going to teach your peers about a method used in the study of environmental change or climate science, and you'll also be asked to include summary or teaching materials for your classmates. There's a communication project in this course, and there's lots of choice here. Over the years, I've done several different projects, and this year I'm offering you the options of the ones that we've done in the past, plus one new one. So your options are to write a science brief for a climate negotiation delegate, to write an article, a blog article that communicates a peer-reviewed scientific journal article to a general news reading audience, or finally to talk about it. This is an opportunity to do an oral communication version of this project where you talk to somebody about climate change and reflect on the experience. This is inspired by a scientist named Dr. Katharine Hayhoe, who talks about how is it that you actually talk to somebody about climate change and why it's so important to do so. For each of these projects, we're going to decide as a class, how do we best communicate to these different audiences and come up with criteria about how to do so. The project is worth 25% of your mark, and there's a huge variety of projects that folks have done. On the project site, I'll do a quick video of some of the projects that folks have done in the past, but your choice here is really to think of a topic of interest related to environmental change and then figure out how is it that you're going to present it. So you could do something like a research poster, but you could also do something like a story map or a classroom curriculum or a website. There have been all sorts of different things that folks have used or done. You have to research the topic using academic sources regardless of the route that you go. And you'll need to create a project plan. So if you're doing more of a research project, then you have to write an annotated bibliography and a topic statement. If you're doing more of a creative project, you have to create a project plan. Finally, you have to showcase your project and take questions from classmates and others. Last year, we had to move the class online, just as you did with your other courses. And so we have a pretty good system worked out for how you can do this and how you can view each other's projects in a pretty slick fashion. What about success in this course? So there's an entire video that's dedicated to past students and their advice that they have for you for being successful in this course. And so I encourage you to watch that. But I also just wanted to add my own 2 cents or my own nickels worth of advice to you as well. The first that I mentioned is that the asynchronous materials each week are required. And you want to keep up with them because they prepare you for the week's activities. And so I've taken all of the readings and some of the lecture material from previous years and added it to these asynchronous activities. They're carefully curated. You will have time for them because of the amount of work that I've taken out from other aspects of this course, from the assessments that I've simplified, and so I really implore you to keep up with those in order to make the classroom experience as good as possible for everyone. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that it's really important that you focus on understanding over memorization. You might have heard this before and been burned, but please trust me on this. You really need to focus the most on, do you understand the concept? Could you explain that graph if you didn't hear me just explain it or your classmate just explain it? Practice explaining things. Don't just nod along and say, yeah, it makes sense when she says it, because that's a really common trap to fall into. And I do my best to make sure that you get a chance to actually practice with a lot of the skills that we're learning about, but it's on you to kind of monitor your own progress in that regard. And the final piece of advice is just to push yourself a little bit. So I'm not going to put you on the spot to do something like speak in front of the class when you're not ready. But if that's something that you feel you need to work on, then I encourage you to set those goals for yourself and work on those things. Mm-hmm.